Welcome, Natassia, to Talk It. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that we could make it happen given our time difference. So I'm glad to be here.
I know for everyone who's listening, Natassia is actually in Dubai right now. So we have a crazy, I think 11-hour difference.
11 hours. Yeah. So it's 8 p.m. here now and it's 9 a.m. there. So it is.
It's like you've already lived the day that I'm about to live.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Um, Natassia, it's so good to have you here. I've been following you on Instagram for a while now, actually, and I just love how passionate you are about what you speak on and how knowledgeable you are in what you speak on. I can tell that you've put in so much time and effort to not only understand yourself, but to be able to create a way for other people to digest what you have now learned. And I think
Yeah.
that's so remarkable of a trait that you've been able to do. And now you've built a huge business for yourself. And you've accomplished so much in your life. And I'm so in awe of you, if I'm honest.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. I mean, this is a long, long work in progress. I've come a long way. I've had some major, major failures along the way, but you learn, you fail, you fall, you grow. I always knew that when I went on my weight loss journey, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point, that I wanted to come onto the other side helping people, but I just didn't want to do anything that I couldn't resonate with. So I'm so happy that I'm here, but I'm able to do it in a way that I can truly, truly resonate. And I think that speaks wonders.
Yeah, no, that's so incredible. I want to get into your entire journey. I have so many questions for you, but I ask every single one of my guests the same questions at the beginning of the episode and one at the end. So I want to ask you my question that I ask everybody is, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really, really good question. Uh, I am grateful for. Wow, that's a good question. Today's been it's been such a day. It has been such a day. It has been such a day.
We're
Um,
turning it today.
do you know what? I am grateful for a good team, a great team. I'm grateful for a great team. I can have days where I can very easily, based on my past, not believe in myself or not believe in our growth. But my team is they're so amazing. They're so they are like, Natasha, we are behind you no matter what happens. And today was one of those days where we were kind of all over the place trying to navigate things. And at one point I was like, I don't think this is going to work. So I'm really grateful for them, because when you have a positive team, you can really come on board. I can come here and be the best version of myself. So yeah, today I'm truly grateful for my team.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's so lovely that you have such good people to surround yourself with too. Especially, I feel like when you're, going on this journey of being an entrepreneur and, doing your own thing and setting your own path, like it's so important to have the right people around you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, team, friends, partner, they shape the way you think, they shape the way you see the world. You spend majority of your time with them, and if you don't curate that to the person that you're becoming, it can have an impact.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Natassia, for me, I am so grateful for you being here today with me. I'm so blessed that, you're calling in from all the way from Dubai. So super grateful to have you here on the show today.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Honestly, I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we're here. We're making it happen.
I know, I'm so happy. Okay, so I need to hear everything about you. I'm so curious to know. I'd love to know a little bit more about your story. I know you lost 143 pounds, which is
Yes,
insane. I think it's 67 kilograms. Is that what it
yes,
is?
exactly.
Which is insane. Tell me a little bit about who you were before the weight loss. What was going on in your life at that time, and what did your day to day routine look like? What was going on in your mental?
So the life back then at 145 kilos was, as you can imagine, um, not the best at times. I was raised between Dubai and Canada, and you know, being raised from an Indian household and weight always being the topic of discussion, whether you're at your home or your aunt's house. And it was something that was always just talked about. It was something that I was seen for before anything else. Oh, Natassia, oh, you have such a pretty face. If only you lost some weight, you know? Oh, look at your thighs. They're so big. And how did you get this way? And, whenever anyone met my parents, it would be the first thing like, oh my God, she's so big. So that kind of sits with you even before you can realize you're big. People are already talking about it, so now you have this identity. Wow, I must be big, this must be it. And that, combined with my obsession with food, just kept growing and growing and growing. But the crazy part was, it never bothered me. It never bothered me that people called me fat. It never bothered me that I was in a US size 26, going up to 28, 30 at times. Like, it never ever bothered me. I was ashamed at times. Um, if people would stare, but it never made me go back home and say, oh, I've had enough. Like, because I got made fun of, I'm going to start losing the weight. I got very comfortable being overweight. Um, and that was my way of life. And I think now, looking back, it was such a protection for myself. It was my easiest way of blending in, and that's just how I lived it. And sometimes I want to go back in time and just hug her and just let her know that things will be okay. But that's pretty much how I seen the world. It was very them against me. I remember always looking at God and being like, why did you do this to me? Why did you? And it's not that I just, at that time, my hair was really curly, my feet were really big. I was like, my God, you've made me overweight. You've given me such curly hair. You've given me big feet. Like, you've given me nothing that I can work with. Why would you do this to me? So it was a struggle, but I dealt with it, one day at a time. And yeah.
Wow, that's so I resonate with so much of that because I'm Pakistani, and so much of brown culture in general is like you're
Absolutely.
taught at a very young age that women are meant to be looked at,
Yeah.
and don't laugh too much, don't talk too much, like you're supposed to be looked at. So when you're not the ideal standards that they have in their minds, you start feeling like there's something wrong with you. Basically, you grow up thinking, oh, my parents don't love me because
Yeah.
I'm not as pretty as the other girls. It's
Yeah.
like, do
Absolutely.
you even like me the way I am, or are you going to only like me when you can tell your friends that you have a daughter to get married or something? It's like a
Absolutely.
big issue. So I resonate with like so much of that. I'm very curious. I know you said that it didn't bother you, being the weight that you were. Did you ever suffer with like confidence issues at that time, or were you always like, were you able to speak with people, or like, did you kind of go back into a shell and kind of say like, oh, like no one will be friends with me. I'm just gonna be shy anyways.
My confidence was diminished. I don't even think I knew what confidence meant. That was my sole identity. I had some great friends. I've always, somehow or the other, always were friends with the most popular people, or like, that always worked out somehow or the other. But I I just knew what I was labeled as, and I couldn't see myself as anything else. So I would tell myself, why even bother? Why even try? Anything I'm doing right now, that is good enough. So I never put makeup on my face. I had, if I was going to work, I had one pair of pants that, in like one colored pants and like three different options and
Mhm.
a couple shirts. And it was, you could just see my care for life was so minimal. I cared for food a lot,
Yeah.
but when it came to me and my personal care, I didn't, because I felt no one else cares, so why should I?
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's like you probably didn't even want to take care of yourself because you were like, what is even the point of it?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just give up hope. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, along with the confidence, you try to do things the way normal people did, and I did as well. Dating and going out and partying and doing all of that, and some elements of it would match, but then the way people would treat you, you could see that you were getting treated differently than others at certain points, and
Mhm.
you'd be like, wow, why am I getting treated that way? Why am I getting singled out? Why am I not getting those opportunities? I'm just as good. I'm just as smart. Um, and you could see that. And I gave up because I was like, if that's how you're going to see me, then there's no, I can't change that. Or I believe that I couldn't change that. So I just lived life.
Yeah. So what changed? What was that moment? Because you never came back home and was like, I hate this enough to change it. So what was that moment
Yeah.
that
So
for
for
you?
me, the biggest change was when I went to the doctor's office. So my mom struggles with high blood pressure, my dad struggles with diabetes. And when I went to the doctor's office, he said, you're on the borderline of just a few more years to live, right? You make the choice right now. You tell me how you want to live your life because you've gotten this far. And he was our family doctor. He's been telling me this for years. But this time, there was a seriousness in his voice. This time, there was a tone that I never heard him say before. So it was a bit scary. I was a bit shaken, I must say. And he gave me this little diet, and it was like a zero carb diet. And I was scared when I left the doctor's office, but I never followed it. And this was around September, October. And then January first week, I opened the diet app and I told my mom, I was like, look, let's just do it. I don't know if we're going to get anything off this, but let's just try it. Let's see if it works. And my mom was on board. She said, okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll cook you a separate meal and let's try. And so I did it for the first week, and I lost, I think, 4 kilos it was. And then I did it for another week, lost a little bit more. And then the weight just started going off. And it took me about a year and a half of just no carbs, right? Just eating a lot of protein and vegetables, which right now I would say would be the most unhealthiest diet anyone can ever be on, because that's a whole other spiral that we'll talk about. But it got the job done at that period of time. And in a year and a half, I was the smallest I've ever been. I remember when I was the first time uh, under 200 pounds. In our world, in the dieting obesity world, we call that wonderland, and everyone was so excited, like, oh my god. I remember even being in the doctor's office and them being like, you're in wonderland, can you believe this, can you believe that? And it was so exciting. And then I got to my smallest, and I was just, I was in awe. I was in awe. I never been that size. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. Sometimes you're walking across the mirror and you're like, is that me? You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy, and it's a different way of life, because I've been obese for majority of my life. I didn't know how to act with people. I didn't know how to act with men, even though I dated. Now people are looking at you at a very different way, a different limelight. Um, People treat you differently. People that knew that you were bigger are now treating you differently once you've lost the weight. People that didn't know you were overweight are now treating you like a whole different woman. And then you kind of ask yourself, well, would you have treated me the same way if I was overweight? So it messes with your mind a little bit. And I work with clients on this as well, like clients that have lost weight and they're trying to navigate the world, because it's messy. It's really, really messy. And I believe this goes back to your first question. If I was a confident person that appreciated herself in some shape or form, right? Forget her body, forget anything of that sort. If I had any of those building blocks, it would have been easier for me to navigate the world and find my place. But because I was so lost to begin with in the first place, right? No confidence, no lack of self worth, no acceptance, no identity, then you lose all this weight and it's like all eyes on you, and you struggle. I struggled so much because um I didn't know what fitting in felt like. I didn't know what my worth was. I was hoping other people would help me determine that. And when other people know that you don't know what your self-worth was, you can very easily get stepped on. And then you're telling yourself, why am I getting treated like this? I'm thin now. I'm thin. I shouldn't be treated like this. So it messes with you, but slowly but surely you learn how to navigate that as well.
Yeah, no, everything you're saying to me, I'm like, wow, I have felt every single thing that you're talking about as well. And for me especially too, like I have always had issues with my weight as well, like fluctuating up and down. I also did like keto for like 7, 8 months. It was the smallest I'd ever been, and then my body was like, I want everything now because you have deprived me of so much. Now let's balance it back out and let's everything we want. And it really does like mess with you internally, mentally, you know. And it's also, I want to go back to this idea of like an identity shift, because I think that that's a very hard concept to grasp for a lot of people because they have lived their life, identifying as one kind of person, right? Like for me, for example, I used to be very insecure. I used to be very like unconfident. And for my whole life, I was in that little label. I was in that bubble of someone saying, Mina, you're not confident. You're not, the pretty girl. You're not the girl who gets the guys. You're not anything. And to shift out of that mentality is to basically shift out of everything you know about life. And I feel like you had to do that as well, where you were one way, right? You were somebody who didn't have hope for their life, who didn't understand, you know, like you were going through the motions of life, but it sounds like to me you weren't really living it properly at that
Yeah.
time. So I would love for you to speak on what does that look like for you to literally drop an old identity and step into a new, better one.
It's easier said than done, and it's easier said than done. And if people always told me when I was younger, if you only lost weight, if you only lost weight, if you only lost weight. And I think that's the part that I struggled with the most, because now I did lose the weight, right? But I was still feeling incomplete. I was feeling so incomplete that I spiraled back and gained 30 kilos in a matter of 6 months. I was feeling so lost and so uncertain and still struggling with food, that I lost control really, really fast. And this is what people don't talk about. They put your value down to, if you only lost weight, your life would change. And that's what I believed. I believe that once I lost all the weight, my whole world would change. Things would open up, like there'd be a red carpet. It would just be completely different. But that's not the case, right? Life still stays the same. You can choose to make different choices. You can choose to be a healthier person. And no one tells you that maintaining your weight loss after you've struggled with that much weight is even harder than actually losing the weight, right? They're just like, no, once you do it, that's it. That's the end of the world. I used to have these dreams that once I lose all the weight one day, I'm going to eat ice cream every day. And I couldn't wait to have carbs and I couldn't wait to have bread. But long behold, as soon as I started doing that, the weights just started creeping back on and piling back on. So I was told a lie. I believed a lie. I followed the lie, and it didn't add up. And I realized then that in order for me to be this person, to keep the weight off, I needed to develop new habits, new routines, new structures, right? One that aligned with this new person. Because if I continued thinking, acting, behaving, eating the way the old person did, I was going to start looking exactly like her again. So this is when I realized, okay, so it's not just losing the weight and that's the end of it. I need to really embark on a new person if I want to stay here, if I want to be here. And I think that is the biggest thing that people need to understand and resonate with when they come to when they start on a weight loss journey, that there is no end date. There is no just I will become thin and that's the end of me. There was I need to become a new version of me. If I want to stay here, if I want to be here, if I want to build confidence, you're talking to someone who couldn't look at men in the eye when I was talking to them. I'd always look down. I'd never look at them because I just lacked that much confidence that a man is actually talking to me. So it's this is where that whole new identity concept for me started, and what I truly profess even to this day.
Hmm. That's so, and it's kind of like you're kind of in a way like killing a version of yourself and rebirthing
Absolutely.
into a new one,
Absolutely.
a better one. And I think that as a society in general, we have such an issue with death, which it makes sense. But I feel like there's such a beauty in releasing old things that need to go instead of constantly clinging on to it. Because I feel like, especially for me, I have a hard time detaching from things because I've known it for so long. So I feel like a part of our body really resists change and really resists this transformation because we're like, this feels so good, this feels so comfortable, this feels so familiar to us. I just want to hold on to it as much as I can. But there's such a beauty in finally like letting it go and letting it die out.
Absolutely. I mean, people are so nervous to know what's going to be on the other side, right? They're so nervous because we get very stuck in our ways. We like familiar. We like familiar. And when we're in the unfamiliar, it's scary. It's very, very scary. But knowing and believing the fact that this unfamiliar is one day going to be my new familiar, it's going to be my way of life, that's the part that people lose out on, because it's trial, it's error, it's failure, it's working out, it's doing things that you might not like that you might eventually like. And that's it. It is the shedding of your old self. And sometimes that feels sad, it feels scary. I feel like I've gone through so many sheddings since I've lost the weight, regained it, lost it again. And then I went through another shedding because I lost more weight after that. It was a continuous, it's a continue. And every time I shed to a new version of me, I feel sad. I feel sad because there are certain things that you get used to doing and you're like, oh God, I don't do that anymore, but that would feel so nice right now. But also that what you're doing and what's to come is so much better for you. So I think
Yeah.
that's it's one of the key parts that a lot of people don't talk about.
No, absolutely. How do you, I'm curious, how do you stay like grounded into yourself if you're constantly shedding skins? How do you look in the mirror and go, oh yeah, I remember you. Like I know who you are because now you've like transformed so many times.
The way I stay grounded is through my core values and my core beliefs, right? What was I put onto this earth for? What is my purpose? Right? What what is my message? What do people want to hear from me? And this is something, as I said right in the beginning, I this is something I've asked myself for a very, very long time. Why was I put here? And I think as I'm shedding, so the sheddings that are happening now are more to do with elements that are attached with being an obese person. Elements like people pleasing, elements such as learning to say no, elements such as building powers, holding space. These are all things that we subside when you're struggling with obesity. You subside it, you don't want to show it, you don't want to hold space, you want to blend in. And now, being a business owner, an entrepreneur, coaching women, it's you need to hold space, you need to have a team, you need to be assertive, you need to be confident. So I am developing those skills and I'm working on those skills every single day. But then when I look at myself in the mirror, I was like, okay, Natassia, you know why you're doing this, right? You're doing this because you had a message. You've gone through life up and down. You've made the mistakes, and you're doing it because you don't want other people to make the same mistakes. I don't want other people to feel alone. And I believe my story would have been so different if there was education involved, if there was knowledge involved, if there was simple care and, you know, just understanding of what is this individual going through. And for me, that's core. For me, those are my beliefs, those are my values, and what I want to bring to the table every single day. So as I'm changing and I'm becoming assertive, dominant, learning to take space, I'm still remembering that she's still here. She still was put on a purpose, and that keeps me sane.
Oh my God, I'm getting like goosebumps talking to you. It's so
Thank you.
lovely speaking to somebody who's so embedded into their purpose, because I feel like so many of us, we walk around, kind of like sleepwalking through life. And it's so beautiful to see this like light like in you, because it's pouring out of you.
Oh,
It's such a
thank
blessing
you.
to
Thank
talk to
you.
you. So, again, I appreciate you being here. I'm so grateful.
That's my
Um,
pleasure.
but I do want to harp on, you harped on this a little bit, but I want to bring you back to this all or nothing mentality that I feel like I struggle with this so much. I feel like I'm somebody, I don't know if it's society who has taught us, like, you know, ball out, like do 180%, like kill it every single time. Like there's so much hustle mentality in us that it's like if you're doing 80%, you're failing. It's 100 or nothing. So
Mhm.
I would love to know, um, how do you tap out of that mentality and tap into a more balanced one? Have you found any success in it? Have your clients found any success? Like, what have you learned from doing that?
So I have, I've done it for myself, and I do it for my clients now. I have learned balance through failure. Failure has been my biggest learning lesson to how for a lot of things in life, and I often looked at failure as such a bad thing. And I teach this to my clients as well. I tell them, fail forward. Even if you're going to fail, we're going to sit here and we're going to look at that failure and we're going to see what were the learning opportunities from this, so that when you make that mistake again, you would have learned and you would have done something completely different. You have an opportunity now to learn to do better. So for me, some of my biggest lessons of learning how to balance, learning how to have the best of both worlds is from failure. When I first started my business, I was doing everything. I wanted to be everything for everyone, like running home for calls, doing this, doing that. And I experienced burnout, extreme amounts of anxiety, extreme amounts of panic attacks, and I shut down. I couldn't work for 3 or 4 weeks. And that was my learning lesson, that I couldn't work at that pace. I couldn't work at pleasing everyone and, taking on clients that I felt was maybe not aligned with me, but I could make them aligned with me, and signing up for programs, even though they promised to make you a great coach or things of that sort. But I couldn't believe in them as an individual. So you learn, and I think that burnout was a huge learning lesson for me. For my clients, it's the same thing. They have this image of what they see on social media. I should be working out 6 times a week, 7 times a week. I should be eating 1,200 calories, and if I don't do that, then I don't want to do it at all. But if you don't do that and you don't do it at all, you're stuck in where you are. So why can't we just do a little bit? Why can't we just do a little bit every single day? So the goal here for me as a coach is to meet people where they are. If you're not walking at all, how can we make you get 1,000 steps a day? 1,000. Let's just do 1,000. 1,000. And you'll laugh because you're like, 1,000's going to do nothing. But 1,000's better than you doing nothing. And that is a very, very hard concept for people to come to terms with, especially if you're very, very stuck in all or nothing. And the way you do one thing in life is the way you do everything. So if you're all or nothing your weight loss, you're probably all or nothing your work, you're probably all or nothing your friends, you're probably all or nothing your skincare, your diet, you're doing it in other areas of your life as well. So, yes, we're focusing on one thing, on building a happy medium of what that looks like for you, but you're going to start seeing it trickle down in other areas of your life. And the best way to learn is from your past experiences, from your failures. So I embrace failure. When people sign up with me, I was like, "Are you ready to fail?" And they get so triggered when I ask them that question. Like, "Are you ready to fail? I'm here to sign up with you as a coach. I'm going to be paying you money, and you're asking me if I'm ready to fail." And I was like, "If you're not ready to fail, maybe I'm not the right person for you." Because if you're ready to fail, I'll be there with you to teach you how to pick you up, because life's about failures. And if you're ready to do that, then you and I will be a good fit. But if you're not ready to do that, then maybe we're not. Because for me, that's the biggest learning lesson. And if you can pick yourself up from there and move forward, those are the people that can get to the other side and stay on the other side.
Mm. That's such an interesting concept. I'm trying to think about why we don't like failing so much, and I feel like there is so many emotions that come with failure, where you feel a little guilty, you feel a little ashamed about it, and you feel like kind of like a loser. You're like, why would I only walk 1,000 steps? Like that's like I'm a loser if I do that kind of thing. So is there something that you tell your clients or you tell yourself that when you fail, like how do you combat those emotions of shame and guilt? How do you get okay with being, you know, not living up to your full potential? Or I think that's a part of it too. It's like, why would I walk I know I can walk probably 10,000 a day, but it's like to say to only do 1,000 kind of undermines your potential, but then at the same time you don't want to do it either. You're like, I'm either going to do nothing and then label myself as not a gym goer, or I'll do 10,000 and label myself as a gym goer, because then there's no shame or guilt involved in it, because I feel like I'm not like setting myself up to reach my potential and then not making it.
Yeah. It's about stripping the individual away from all that they've learned from the dieting culture and everything of that sort. It's about stripping them away from everything. And some individuals, they struggle. They struggle, especially if they're very heavily influenced by social media. They struggle with what a happy medium is and how to step away from the all or nothing, because social media or the best trainer or some social media influencer is saying how she gets her six pack abs every single day. And so they struggle with that. But another individual could say, okay, fine, I'll step away from that, but what do I need to do? So the idea is to give them a list of accountabilities that they can check off and learn. So the way I approach, reaching a happy medium, I was like, look, you want to do 6,000, 10,000 steps a day? Show me 1 week of you consistently doing 1,000. We'll bump it up next week. But show me that you can at least do this. You know what I mean? If you can show me this, okay, we can do that. But if you can't even do this, why are we even talking about that? Why are we even talking about something that you can't even attain at a small level? So the idea is building their belief that one, they can do it. Can they do this at this nominal level? And they learn a lot of things about themselves, because a lot of people say, I want to do it. I can do it. I want to do it. But when you really dive down into, do you really want this? Do you really want it? Because you're not even doing the minimal effort. And then you kind of realize that maybe they have this image in their head. One day I'm going to be really skinny, one day I'm going to be really thin, life's going to be really beautiful. I know, I've been there. These are the exact same thoughts I had. I'm going to be super, my whole world's going to be perfect, and then I'll switch my way of thinking. They want this dream land, but they don't want to do any of the work for it, because in order to reach the dream land, they have to be a dream person doing the dream workouts. And now it's about building that bridge, and this is how we build the bridge. And I'll get a lot of pushback. And people would say, no, I can do more. I was like, well, okay, if you do more, good on you. It's a win. It's a win-win situation then. You proved me wrong. But for now, this is what I want. and you'll get all sorts of people, and some people will be very, very stubborn with that mentality. But it's a new way of thinking, it's a new way of living. So I accept challenges, I accept people um, feeling angry, hurt, frustrated, because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same results. The way I'm challenging you is to have a new way of thinking, is to have a new way of living. Why don't you try this to get some different results? And so it's it's not always easy, it's not always accepted by a lot of people, but once they see the results, once they see the movement, once they see the changes, they start believing in the program, they start believing in themselves, they start realizing that, oh wow, I was really stuck in this all or nothing mentality, because it's a switch. Once you see how all or nothing you are, and once you see that you can attain results being consistent rather than being all or nothing, it's a switch that turns on in your head. You can't unsee it. You might go back to those old habits when you're stressed or not feeling like it, but you can't unsee it, because then you'll be like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm doing that all or nothing thing again. And that's a hard concept for people to come to terms with, but you know, we get it done.
It's so funny. The more I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like we are our own worst enemy. It's like we want so many things for ourselves, and then we stand in our own way of receiving them. And there's no reason. It's just our
Yeah.
ego being like, you know what? I don't tell me to do 1,000 steps because I know I can do 10,000, but I just don't want to do 10,000. So I'm just going to sit on my couch instead. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, just, if you want something, go. You really do have to break down all these beliefs that you have in your life. Like, you have to pick them out each one by one and be like, what is stopping me from receiving this? Let me pick this belief out. Let me change it to a different one. Is that what you kind of do with your clients? You help them, like, as much as you help them with their weight loss, are you equally helping them with their mental weight loss in a way?
Absolutely. So for me, when it comes to their mental health, my philosophy when it comes to emotional eating is people that struggle to express their emotions in the right manner will struggle with food. So if you learn how to express your emotions better, your reliance on food as a coping mechanism, as an obsession, as an addiction, whatever you can identify with, will reduce over time. You'll have the nominal overeating episode. Okay, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. You'll have that, right? But if you find yourself stressed and eating, uncomfortable and eating, lonely and eating, this is reliance on food. And if you had an outlet, if you knew how to self-soothe yourself without food, and weight and weight was a concern, then you would not be struggling with weight. You would not be struggling with these moments where you're losing control around food. And so it's that whole self-soothing element. So I'm always teaching people, build your emotional eating toolkit. Learn how to self-soothe. Learn how to self-soothe without food. And I see patterns amongst clients, right? The environments that they were raised, the families that they were raised in, the trauma that they've experienced, the body dysmorphia that they're currently going to, the kinds of careers they have. All of these things have an impact on why they rely on food. And it's whenever I speak to someone for the first time, I will always go back to their childhood, because they're relying on food either due to the fact that something happened during their childhood or something significant happened as an adult. And then you'll see some sort of coping mechanism. Now, the reason, and it's no different, using food as a coping mechanism is no different as using alcohol as a coping mechanism. We do it to take the edge off. It's a form of escapism. I just want to take the edge off, you know. But food, we need to eat to survive. So the area is so gray. I'm like, no, I'm just eating because I need to eat. And then before you know it, it's an overeating episode, it's a binge eating episode. So the whole mental health element is so tied into why we do what we do when it comes to our overeating tendencies. Because if someone's told me they had a binge eating episode, if someone's told me, or they've been working with me for a while and they say, you know what, Natassia, food's been on my mind a lot today, I can feel it coming. The first thing I'll ask them is, how was your day? How was it? What happened today? Nothing, nothing, nothing. And of course, they'll say nothing because that's the way they suppress their emotions. They've been doing it for so long now, they're going to their default setting. So I'll poke and I'll prong and I'll poke and I'll prong. And then finally, it'd be like, oh, I got into an argument with my boss, or my colleague got a raise over me, or my someone at work told me this top really looks good on your body. Why did she say your body? Why did couldn't she just say you? You know, and it doesn't have to be a particular emotion, but it could have triggered something. It could have triggered some sort of insecurity. Now you're on edge. Now you're feeling uneasy and you want to take that unease off. But what people need to realize that if you sit with that feeling of uneasiness for a small period of time, it will pass. But we're so fearful. We're so fearful that it won't pass, that we just calm it down with food, and we've done it for so long that it's just the instinct reaction. And that's where, I come in and teach people how to separate that bond and connection between the two, so that they can learn to start thinking for themselves, acting for themselves, seeing what happens if they don't give up with food, learning how to stand up for themselves. So there's that whole element that changes in them. And sometimes they don't like what they see. They can't even believe that they're doing, thinking, acting this way. They don't like it. But as I mentioned, you once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right. That's so interesting to me. I would love to hear more if you can share what are these patterns that you're noticing? What does everyone have in common from their childhood, from their parenthood, from their, current living situations? What is the common thread between all of them that is leading them to emotional eating?
Patterns that I do see. One would be a category: if the individual had struggled with trauma, then food would have been picked up as a coping mechanism along the way. If the individual, another category would be if the individual struggled with weight majority of their life and was raised in a household where their weight was always the topic of discussion. They were singled out from events or opportunities because of their weight, or been asked to eat less, or not partake in events, or their weight was very much used against them. And of course, the third category that I've tend to notice and worked with as well would be individuals that I've picked up careers where their body was on display. So modeling, dancers, ballet dancers. So they tend to pick up eating disorders, body dysmorphia is something that I've commonly seen as well.
Wow. That's so interesting. I never really thought of food as, this addiction. It's kind of like an addiction, whether you'd be addicted to alcohol, whether you'd be addicted to drugs. And it's, I think, harder with food because you can't necessarily like live without it, right? It's like drugs or cigarettes or whatever the case may be. You can push that aside and your body does not need that on a daily basis. But with food, it's something that you have to come in contact with constantly, and to have to, regulate that every single day and think about it every day is is just a lot of mental effort and a lot of mental work. So I'm very curious to know then, what are healthy coping mechanisms that you find? What do your clients find success in?
It varies from person to person. There, whenever I give people options on how to look at healthy coping mechanisms, what might work for me might not work for you. For me, pouring cold water on my face, going for a walk, it's one of the main reasons why I go to the gym. I always say this: I started going to the gym for my weight, but I'm now going to the gym for my mental health. Because if I don't work out, my anxiety creeps up. If my anxiety creeps up, I'm feeling unsettled. If I'm feeling unsettled, I'm automatically thinking of food. So for me, it's the gym, it's kickboxing, it's pouring cold water on my face, going for a walk, um, hugging someone. For someone else, it could be skincare routine in the night, like just self care, things that they've ignored about themselves for so long. Um, I have one client that absolutely loves putting cream on her hands for like a 5 minutes. She's like, Natassia, I would always see people putting cream on their hands. And I was like, wow, when I'm thin, I'm going to be that person. And I was like, why do you have to wait to be thin to buy, a lovely hand cream and sit there and moisturize your hands? Like, why do only thin people get to do that? And something like that, bringing that self-care element for her is like, no, I'm this person. I'm more than food. So it's just little things. It's about understanding where the person needs the attention and care the most, and then providing them. And of course, I have over 100 self-soothing ways. Breathing, slamming a pillow, diverting your mind, distracting your mind, learning how to say no. It's 100 self-soothing ways that you can navigate this. And from the 100, I always tell people there has to be 10 to 15 that you can resonate with. And those 10 to 15 you keep in your back pocket. That when something comes up, you try one. If it's not the one, you try the other. And yes, you're going to fail and they're not going to work every time. But every time you fail, there's something to be told. There's something deeper that you're not addressing that we need to come to terms with.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting this aspect of self-worthiness that creeps into play. I think that trickles down to everything, kind of like what you were mentioning before, right? If you're unbalanced in your weight loss, you're probably unbalanced in so many other aspects of your life. If you're lacking self-worth, that's going to trickle down into so many different avenues of your life. Bless your client who won't even buy herself hand cream, right? And I struggled with that a lot as well. Like this, just feeling like I feel like when you are bigger, or you're not the conventional attractiveness, you have this idea in your head, and it's just an idea. It's not absolute truth, but we take it as that, even though it's just a belief that's floating around society. And it's that, unless you look perfect, unless you have the best job in the world, unless you have a million friends, unless you're like doing all this stuff, you're not worthy unless you're doing all of that. And I feel like it's so hard to teach people their worthiness when we've all just been taught we have to get somewhere to be worthy. We have to get to 120 pounds to buy our hand cream. And
Yeah.
do you find that your clients, they're working with you? Do they find that worthiness? Like, is it something that can be taught to people?
It can be thought. It can be thought, but it needs constant reminders. Just because I tell you that you're a worthy person, just because I, show you a way of living, you putting it into action, you quieting down that voice in your head that tells you you're not worthy, why are you even trying? That's where the real magic happens. That's where the real change happens. So, where I step in is to guide that individual on how they need to start looking at the world, how they need to bring that element of worthiness and acceptance into their life. Whether they struggle with weight or not, they're still they're still an individual that deserves that kind of love, care, and attention, and show them that they can receive it. My goal on a coaching session is to make that individual feel so loved, so cared for, so um, give them all the attention that they understand that, wow, people do want to listen. I do have a voice. I can make a change. And the goal is to instill it so deep that when they go out to the real world, they can now profess it to other people. They can now show it to other people. And all it takes is one person. All it takes is one person to make that individual that may have been bullied her entire life, that has had no hope, to tell her, you can do this. I believe in you. You can do it. If you just try, I know you can do it. And once they can have that voice in their head time and time and again, because I won't give up. And I say this all the time, you can try how hard, you can ignore me, but it's not like I'm going to come on our coaching calls and I'm going to tell you a different story. I'm still going to tell you you can do it. You can fight me against it, right? And I know it's not personal. I know it's their lower brain. I know it's their upbringing, it's their previous mentality. I know that. And when they come back and they've had a good week and they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I acted that way last week. I was not in the right frame of mind. And I said, I don't take it personally. I know it wasn't you. So it's it's something that people need to be taught. It's something that people need to unlearn what they already know and learn something new, because feeling worthy, you'll know when you start feeling it. You'll know when you show up. You'll know when you're sitting in front of someone, and no matter how they look, how they walk, what they carry, what car they drive, and you feel so complete. That's the that's you really being in line with your worth. You know your value, you know your worth, and you don't need anything outside of that to show you otherwise. To get to that level, that takes time. That takes, consistency, that takes effort. But to at least show you that you can get there, you are worth it, you are valued, you are cherished. That's We just need to spark that idea, because once it sparks, it can just grow.
That's so beautiful. It's so interesting, actually. Every podcast episode I do, every one of my guests, whatever they're going through, there's such a common theme of support, getting them through whatever they're going through. And
Yeah.
I think as a society, we genuinely know that connection is so important for us. But I really think that some of us don't put in that extra effort, because connection and support and having people around you is probably the most important thing that a human being can have in this lifetime. And it makes me a little sad because, I'm someone who talks to a lot of people, and I know that some people have social anxiety, some people are shy. But I feel like we're really losing this aspect of connection in our world. And to your point, it's so needed. You need one person to say, yo, you got this. Like, whatever problems you were dealing with, don't worry about them. Like, I'll take you to a new place. Like, I've got your back. And I think it's so beautiful that you're able to do that for people and help them, like, with their mindset shifts, because I feel like it's so difficult to feed that to yourself. Like, you really need someone to offer you a new perspective on life, to be like, oh, there is another way of living, because you get so locked into your own perspective and the one way that you see the world, that it's so nice to have someone else be like, no, this can happen, and that's possible, and this is possible. You just have to, like, get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, you know, you, I like, it's so different to see a client that signs up right in the get go and then see them after 6 months or a year. And I hear them speak sometimes. And I was like, my God, do you realize how much you've changed? Do you realize how much your language has changed? I'm like, I know, Natassia. I know. I can't believe I'm the same person. And so it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. For me, I did what I did. I achieved the weight. I'm running a business, but I'm no longer the hero. I'm my hero story. My time's done. Now the people that are coming after me, the people that I coach, they're the heroes. They're the heroes in their own stories, and they need to start seeing that. They need to recognize that. They need to feel it. And when I see those wins, I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is why I do it. This is what keeps me grounded. So I. I mean, I enjoy every step of it and wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, no, I love that. Natasha, I could talk to you for hours, but I know that you're probably have to get going. So I have one last question for you, and it's the question that I ask all my guests at the end of the show. What is something that everyone needs to know, but no one wants to hear?
Oh, what is something that everyone needs to know, but no
But no
one
one
wants to
wants to
hear?
hear.
Hmm. Wow. Stop placing blame. That's what I would say. It's so easy for people to place blame and not tap into what the responsibility is that they need to look at. And I would just turn around and tell everyone that take responsibility. Take responsibility of your actions. When you know better in life, you can do better. Take responsibility, stop throwing it onto someone else, and do better for yourself.
Incredible. I don't know why I just love you have such powerful energy that I'm like I look at you and I'm like wow, like this is so
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate speaking with you today.
Of course. Where can everyone find you if they want to work with you? How do they do that? How do they follow your work?
Perfect. So you can find me on all social media platforms under Natassia Dsouza, or they can find me on my website, natassiadsouza.com. You can book a call in, and my team will get back to you, and we can take it from there. But yeah, primarily on social media, I'm there every single day with my stories, with my reels, with my posts. If you're looking for inspiration, that's where you'll find me. Yeah.
Love I follow you all the time. I love looking at your stories. I love looking at what you're eating. I love your messages. Huge fan.
Thank you. Thank you. That means so, so much. I truly, truly appreciate it. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad we got to do this.
Me too. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you on our next episode.